stand here this morning if it wasn't. I don't believe that I would be stand up here. It's good to be here again. Pray for me. I need prayer. It's been quite a while since I've tried to preach. And I've missed a lot of lessons from not doing so. But I'm here today to try to do what the Lord would have to do. And I've had two thoughts on my mind. And I had a hard time. I'm going to try, if it be the Lord's will, to feel both thoughts that's on my mind. One of our lesson readings will be found in the 22nd chapter of the book of Proverbs. Proverbs is a book that was written by Solomon. He was a wise king. His dad was the king over Israel. And St. Thomas that David's seed was hanging on the throne. Well, Solomon was the son of David, and he came to the throne to rule over Israel. Beginning with the 22nd chapter, the 6th verse, it says, "Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." The rich ruler over the poor, and the poor to his servant in the he that soweth iniquity shall reap vanity, and the rod of the anger shall fall. That's reading from the 5th verse down through the 7th verse for a scripture lesson. And why this has been on my heart and on my mind, I don't know. But I've been studying and thinking young women are bearing children, or young girls, haven't even reached old enough to be a woman, are trying to bear children. They bring those children into the world, and many of them does not know anything about raising children. When you become a parent or become a person that has children, there's got to be some teaching, and I want to say this morning. Every one of us here are teachers. We are teachers, and we are to teach our children the way the Lord would have us to teach them. If you don't train up a child in a good and right way, that child will go astray. It takes corrections. And I've heard people say, "I don't want to punish my children like I was punished." And I truly didn't want to punish Glenn like Daddy punished me when I was growing up. But as I got older, I found that there's one thing about it. Daddy was probably right in what he did, because I had to suffer a lot of whippings that I could have done without, I thought. But they done me some good. When you have children, the Bible tells us that you come forth from the womb speaking. Now you think about a baby, just a small baby, come forth, and he's able to lie in your hands as a small baby. You say, "Well, I don't believe that." It's true. If you don't believe it, if you've got a small baby, you won't. When that baby, you'll take him up, and maybe he wants to be changed. Maybe he wants something to eat. Maybe he just wants somebody to play with. But he has many ways, and he'll lie to you. And he'll make you believe that he's sick or that he's in need of help. So you have to watch and see what your child is doing. Because they're able, as a small child, to lie to you when you over to their way. You need to stand up and teach your children the good and right way. I've heard people say, well, I don't want to whip my children like Daddy whipped me. If it takes a whipping, whip them. Don't beat them, but whip them. There's a difference between a whipping and a beating. One time Daddy beat me. That's been many years ago, and it never has never left me. We had a hitch rein that passed over the bridle of a mule, and the hitch rein was about 6 feet long. And Daddy whipped me, he doubled it up, and it was about 3 foot. Man, did he ever whip me. I had places on me that felt like as big as a quarter, from my back up here all the way down to my ankle. And I respected him all my life as my dad. But I never did get over that beating. You'll try to forget it, you'll try to go around it, but it'll always be with you. Don't ever beat your children. Whip your children. And then when you whip them, you take them up in your arms and you tell them, I love you, and I'm doing this for your benefit. I'm doing this that I might help you as you go down through life. And my grandfather, he was right different to what Daddy was. My grandfather was a type of person that could talk to you and never have to whip you. He could hurt you worse just talking to you than some people could by using force. And I thought he was one of the greatest people. He had wisdom, and he had knowledge, and he had love for his children. He had love for his grandchildren. And he instilled in us that love that needs to be instilled in all people. You need to learn to love your brothers, your sisters, your family, and your friends and neighbors. You need to learn that love is the greatest weapon that we have here on earth. Without love, we couldn't get along. People want to use love in the wrong way. Love is being able to share each other's trouble and sorrow and grief and try to help in time of trouble. Love is not just saying I love you and then walking off and maybe having a child, and then that child grows up and don't have a father, and his mother trying to raise him on her own, and it can't be done. It's hard for a woman to raise a child. It takes both parties. The mother is to be the teacher in the home. She's to bring up the children and teach them in the home how they should live. And then the man of the house is to take the boys and go to the field and work with his boys, teaching them how to make a living out there in the field working with their hands. So there's two places. And seemingly we have gone away from all of them. When I was growing up, my mother was a good cook. And she would take time out to try to teach Christine and Jude how to cook. She trained them and taught them how to prepare when she got older. And when she got married and had her own family, they are both good cooks. They know how to take care of the family. Mother taught them all the way from the babe up what they should do. And Daddy and my grandfather taught us boys how to work and how to labor, and that it would be beneficial to us in our life. And it has been. We've been able to work and provide for our families, and that's what people need to do. There's people who says, I don't want to work. Well, I tell you what, if you don't work, you don't need to eat. If you don't work and prepare to try to have food for yourself, you don't need food if you have to get somebody to feed you. There's always a way of providing for yourself. But it's easy sometimes for a person to sit back and say, well, I just don't feel like working, and I don't feel like this. There's a lot of times that I'm going to say that you don't feel like getting out of bed. You don't feel like doing a thing. But you get up and go because you have that zeal in your body to want to work. That's what a person should have. My grandfather used to tell us, idle hands is a devil's playhouse. I want you to get that. Idle hands is a devil's playhouse. As long as you keep your hands busy working and laboring and things like this, it'll keep you out of trouble. But you let your hands get idle and you don't do anything and sit there, you'll finally get in trouble. Then you want somebody to help you. You can help yourself by getting out and working, laboring you can. Well, I don't aim to work. If you don't work, don't eat. Get hungry. And I tell you what, when your stomach gets to growling, and when it gets to gnawing, you'll begin to do something, get something to eat. And you'll go out and sometimes you beg people to give to. I'm a slow giver when a person has an opportunity to provide for themselves and don't. I'll help a person and glad to help somebody who is truly in need, when they truly need help. But I'm not going to help somebody that's as able to work as I am and sit in bed, want something to eat. And I'll say it again, if you don't work, don't eat. Now go back, talk about correcting a child. It tells us in the book of Solomon, he was a wise man. Sometime when you have time to sit down and read the book of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and also the Song of Solomon, and you'll find out how far that we have drifted, how far our children have gone in my lifetime, not counting my family's lifetime. When I was growing up, parents knew where their children was throughout the day. Sometimes now children are at home with themselves after school with no one to help them, growing up on their own and being wild many times. When you have a small child, you say, well, he's not big enough to do this or that, he won't get in any trouble. You ain't been around many children, they'll soon show you what they can get into when you don't think you can. And you leave them with babysitters. Some babysitters are wonderful. And some babysitters are dangerous to your children. They'll cause them many problems. And the problem comes back to the fathers and mothers. The problem is that you didn't take time out to be with your children and teach them the good right way. Many times we have our children and they come into the world and we just soon ditch them out and let them go. But that's not the way you raise a family. You bring them into the world and you cuddle them and you love them and you clothe them and you feed them and you do everything that you can do to help them. And hopefully by the help of the Lord, you can have some good children. When I was growing up at home, every spring of the year, we would break a pair of young mules. And you take two young mules that's about 3 years old, never had a bridle on, and never had any harness on, never been hooked up to work or anything. It won't be long you'll find out that you've got problems. Now look at this in a way. You take a child and you don't try to teach him and you don't try to train him and you don't bring him up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, it won't be long till he'll be telling you what to do. I have seen parents, children, stand up to their parents and tell them what they was going to do and what they wasn't going to do. And that did not work in my home. You did what they told you to, and they let you know that they were pleased with the work that you done. Bring up your children and tell them the good things. Many of them are being brought up in evil condition, in sinful condition. There's many children, I've seen on television, I've seen it in the papers in many ways. Many children are brought up in homes where there's drug addicts. Even sometimes they go take the child to the hospital and he's got drugs in his system. Just a child. What in the world has happened unto us as God's people? He has given us a child, an innocent baby that does not know sin, never has seen sin until he come into the world. He brought up in a home of drugs and alcohol and just being pitched around. And that child is supposed to make it on his own. He probably will, but a lot of times they cause lots of heartaches, a lot of problems for you and to people around. So take time out and love your children. Glenn, he has been a special person to me. Ruth has been his teacher. She's been the one that has done the main work in bringing him up to be what he is today, for the Lord. But when he graduated from high school, that really like to have killed me. He was always with me. We would be out there working whatever. He was always with me. And when he graduated from high school, I knew that he wouldn't be around me much anymore. And then he went on and went to college. When he went to college and left home for good, it just tore me all to pieces. If you love your children, you'll teach them that when they leave home. It is very, very hard to see your children leave home and think they won't be back anymore in your home as a child. But he has meant so much to me as we grew up together. When I lived in Gallatin, he was about 4 years old, I think. I was out there mowing the yard. All I had was a push mower. And the yard was about 175 feet deep, about 75 feet wide. And when I come home from work, I'd go through the house and I'd tell Ruth I'd go and mow the yard. Glenn, just a little bitty boy, called him right along, he wanted to go with me. We went out there in the yard and I'd start mowing, and he'd walk a little piece and he'd hold up his hand like this. And I keep going to walk a little further. There he was, holding his hand. Finally, I pick him up and set him on my hip, and I mowed the yard a lot of times. Him riding on the hip, pushing the lawnmower on one hand. And I was showing him that I loved him and cared for him, and I wanted him to. And he knew it. And he'd stand there with his little hands up there. Wanted me to take time. I didn't have time to quit taking, but Lord, I pushed him with that lawnmower a lot of time. And today he's got children of his own, and he's done a good job raising his children. And I like to think that his teachings come from the teaching that he had at home when he was a child. Try to be to your children the very best you can be, and that's going to be better done. You'll get mad at them and you'll fuss on them and you'll say things probably shouldn't say. But be careful what you do with your children, because they'll come back and give you headaches. Foolishness is bound in the heart of a child, but the rod of correction shall drive it far from him. Telling us that our children have foolishness bound up in them, and the way to cure that is by whipping. These people says, you whip my child, they won't come back to school. I told my teacher, I told Glenn's teacher, I told her, I said, if you don't whip him and make him mine, I'll pull him out of your class. She made him mine for her, and I'm so thankful. I've got a lot to be proud of that. And some of you have. When I grew up, we didn't have beer in our stores. We didn't have alcohol in our state cities. If you had alcohol, you had to make it. You had to grow your corn. You had to make your steel and make your own liquor. But the government thought that they knew more than our parents did, so they would make liquor, put it in the stores, put a big tax on it, and they said, well, we have to have this to pay our taxes. If we didn't have alcohol and drugs, we wouldn't have to pay as many taxes. We have to correct, build houses and build places for those that are on alcohol and drugs. We have to furnish a place for them, but they need it. They have to have a place for correction. They have to have a place to function. They've got to have a place to feel needed. And I want to tell you today, you need to make your children feel and know that they're needed. How many times do you put your arms around them and say, son or daughter, I love you. I appreciate you. How many times do you do that? I'm going to say very few. But you're missing out on the most wonderful thing. Is when in turn, your children are able to come and put their arms around you and say, Daddy or Mother, I appreciate what you've done for me. That's the way it should be. But we've got to a place that we think that we know more than our fathers did, and I'm sure some of you here think you know more than I do, and I know that. Somebody think you know more than Christ himself, probably. But you're not that smart. You're going to get in trouble if you walk away and live if you live a rugged life. I've seen people, I traveled on the road for years, and I've seen people that couldn't stand up hardly. They didn't know hardly which side of the road they were on. I've been out there and seen all things. And I'm going to say this morning, this is going to kind of be bad in a way. I went to work for Claxton Cake Company in Nashville. And I run this route. I didn't know where the route was consistent of. But I found out I had to call on the Tennessee State Prison. So you're looking at a prison this morning. I was in prison down there for a long time. As a salesman, I had done nothing wrong. But that was my job, delivering cakes, cookies, pies, and stuff to the prison. But when I got there to the prison gate, they would open it up and I'd drive through. The guard would get in the truck and look over to see if he could see anybody in there. Then he would go to the front, open up the door and get up in it and look back to see if there's someone that had possibly gotten in. Then he would get in the truck with me and we'd drive up to the loading dock, back up there and unload. And no one was allowed to get to the truck but one guard. He would come to the truck and stand there while I was unloading. Then when I got the load unloaded, they'd bring a bunch of prisoners out there and they were sorted out and taken care of. Then I was ready to leave. When I got ready to leave, they would get down on the ground and look up under my truck to see if there's anybody that got under the truck holding on. Then I would drive down to this gate again and they'd unlock it. I'd go through it. But before I went through that gate, there was inspection made again inside the truck. Underneath the truck, they was making sure that there was no one escaping. I did that for quite a while. And it was a great experience. And there's where I got some of this things that I'm thinking about today. Train up a child in the way he should go. When he is old, he will not depart. No doubt in my mind, a lot of those people in prison had not been taught, but they've been brought up in not a good way. I found this book that a young man wrote, and he got in trouble when he was about 21 and he had to go to pen. He stayed in the penitentiary for about 10 years. But he got out and he tried again. He got in trouble again with the law. That time it was a serious crime enough that he had to spend about 30-something years in the prison. And he finally was able to work himself out, got out, and he went home. When he got home, this old man was out there and he didn't even know him. And this old man was out there picking up sticks and just walking around. He went up to him and asked him if he knew who he was. He said, no. He said, well, let's walk around the path. This man knew where he was at. There was this little bush out there about so high. When he got there, he said, bend this bush over, make it touch the ground. And the old man pushed it over and touched the ground. He said, well, now let's go up here a little further. And he got up there to another, this was a little bigger bush. It was a tree. He said, Dad, he said, bend that tree over. He said, I can't. He said, Dad, if you had bent me when I was like this little bush, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. He said, you failed me by not correcting me, making the person me I should be. So many times we falter and fail. You know, I make so many mistakes and I fail so many times. But if I can be of help to any of you children, any of you men, women, boys, or girls, I'll help you. I don't do much but pray, but I'll try my best to pray for you. You need help to raise your children, to be God-loving and God-fearing people. One time I was here, running around outside like a boy would, and I ran in front of a car out there, and almost got run over. There was a man that went to church here, he's dead and gone now. But he saw me, Travis Law. He saw what I'd done and he came up to me and took my arm and he said, son, he said, I want to tell you, you like to got run over. And if you have, you got seriously hurt. He said, I'm telling you this not to hurt you, but to help you. He said, don't get out here and run around with one of these cars because you're going to hurt. And I remember thanking him for taking time out to correct me. If you see somebody, it's not your child, whoever it is, they're doing something that's dangerous, don't be afraid to tell them because that will show that you do love them. People, we're living like animals almost. We have our own ways, our own wills, we don't want nobody to mess with us. But somewhere you go to need help, you don't need it now. I've made a mess this morning and trying to stand here. I hope you get something out of it, and I hope you use it for your children's sake. Most of you already settled your way to do, and you pretty well do what you want. But while your child's young, tender, bend that child, make him to realize that there's something he needs to do beside. Just leave it up and have a good time. One time, we had worked hard all week long. We had a cold in the back or in the garden. So I think it was in the back. We got through about the middle of the evening. Mother and Dad give us time off. We just kind of play around. And I don't know which one was, Christine or one of them. We've been there fiddling around a while. She said, I'm bored. And that's something she shouldn't say, or whichever one it was. Daddy didn't heard it. That we were bored. We didn't get bored, we didn't get bored. That's no good for us to get bored. When we got bored, we better find something to do and find it sweet, because they would find it bored. So if you get bored, find something to do it to the very best of your ability. And you'll get a blessing out of it. And God will get on your board. I hope today that I've said something that will stir up your mind and stir up your heart. I want to tell you one more thing. Make sure you have your children in church every time that you possibly can. Lynn and Carolyn was in church with us for a long time. And I was going from church to church. And one day he told me, he said, Dad, would it be all right if I go to Rocky Mountain? The place I'm going with you. And I said, well, sure. I said, as long as you're in church, that'd be fine with me. He said, I'd like to be with you, but he said, I want to go to Rocky Mountain. I said, if that's what you want to do, you just go right ahead and go to Rocky Tuesday. He come here on Sundays, we come out with mother and dad to stay Sunday evening. Sunday night, we go home. And he enjoyed it. But I just said, no, you're not going anywhere but with me. That would have been selfish, hurt me. But I didn't want to do that. And he sure has helped me in many ways. I'm thankful for his plans, which he made to me. I still miss you when you're not at home. I love all of you here at Rocky Mountain. Some of you I don't even know that you say, how can you love me? Because I got a heart of love. I've got a love in my heart that God placed in me, and I can love you regardless and try to help you the very best I know how. This is my message. It's been scattered, but I've given you what the Lord laid on my heart, and I've rolled one way and then I'd roll the other way. And I'd get up and I'd walk, and I've done many things. But Lord, I've done the best I can. You gave it to me, and I have given it to the people as you give it me. I give it back to you, Lord. This is it. Stand together. Stand while we sing. I'm going to turn the service back over to you.
Inspiration book number 142.